Radio Wammo Breakfast here on Kiwi.
The Radio Wammo Breakfast.
Issues of the day under T-Radar.
Issues, plenty of them to start chewing through this morning. Good morning, T-Radar.
Oh, a mouthful of issues.
Oh. Did you feel constipated with issues?
They do. Sometimes you do get that nagging sense that there's just too many issues.
We were just remarking off here there that sometimes you look at the paper and you go, news.
Just so much of it. You know, and it's generally a bit gloomy, and you get those people who say, oh no, don't read the news, don't look at the news, it's always too depressing, and you always think, oh, but it's the news, it's exciting, it keeps you informed, and then there are times when you lapse into that yourself and you just think, news.
Don't you feel when you're away, perhaps off in the bush somewhere, maybe camping next to a river, you feel so free from the shackles of news?
Exactly. The sun keeps rising, the clouds keep scudding over, the cicadas continue to chirp, the crickets come into your tent at night, nothing changes. Yeah. You're just in this kind of state of blissful ignorance, and then you come back out and you think news.
Especially when you're posed next to the river with a top hat and a gun and a dog.
Yes, especially then.
Yeah.
Especially then. And especially also, I guess, if you're next to the river like that, considering what it must have been like to have been a miner back in the early days. No high-tech magnetic surveying then. It was just you and your shovel.
I tell you what, but I do enjoy going and visiting, the old mining sites from the 1800s, like the old Brunner mine on the west coast.
Yes, I was there recently, yes.
And so I enjoy visiting it.
Site of the country's worst ever mining disaster.
That's right.
65 men killed.
A whole bunch of them died there.
Yes.
But I look at it and go, now, am I glad that they mined this, or would I rather that this was just kept natural the way it was?
Well, it doesn't look as if you can't see much there in terms of, there's no, admittedly it was an underground mine, but the whole township's gone. And you go through places, Lyle, I think. I remember staying once in a little place called Lyle for, at one stage, 5,000 people. Now you would have no idea that anyone ever lived there. An isolated tombstone mouldering away in the bush, and that's really it. The bush has reclaimed everything, because it does have quite an ability to reclaim things. Have you seen that program where they try to figure out how long nature would take to reclaim cities if man disappeared?
Oh, no, I love that kind of stuff, though.
Literally weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Right.
they had a good example. Chernobyl was a good example, because, of course, they abandoned it.
Yeah.
And then now it's all become, there are trees growing out of buildings and all kinds of things.
Well, how far into the future was Planet of the Apes? Because that's a really good example.
It is. I'm not sure.
Oh, I just gave away the ending, didn't I?
Not really. I think in many ways, if you haven't seen it, you've probably made it quite intriguing.
You've probably
we don't
been.
continue discussing it too much. Speaking of the future,
Yeah.
of the apes, this is going to be a terrible segue. America's healthcare bill passed.
It did. A victory for Obama, they say.
$940 billion American. What's that? 1.3 trillion New Zealand dollars. 219 to 212. Going to change the face of American healthcare, I would hope.
And the opposition to it, their stance was, we don't want a decent health system. I think, was that their
No, I think their
stance?
opposition was that they didn't want socialised medicine, they said. They didn't want the government paying, for all of these supposed bludgers. And yet at the same time, you had all these people protesting, keep your socialist hands off our Medicaid. Well, Medicaid was a government-funded health program. The contradictions are amazing. I heard a stat yesterday. I think they said something like 64% of personal bankruptcies in America are caused because people can't pay their health bills. It's absolutely dreadful.
Yeah.
If you lose your health insurance, and the health insurers themselves are being slammed. They had entire departments of people just doing nothing but turning people's health claims down.
Yeah. Have you seen Sicko?
Yeah,
Michael
no, I
Moore's
haven't.
doco?
No.
It's worth it. It's quite long, and you could probably just deal with just the first hour of it, really, and get the general gist.
Yes, dreadful. So that's passed, so good for them. But
Can Obama now get on with being the president of the world rather than being sidetracked by all these domestic sideshows?
I don't know. It's an interesting thing that's going to happen, because, of course, they've got all that sort of passion and anger out there in talk radio, and I read someone's comment yesterday somewhere that said, this is going to be great for the right-wing extremist talk radios, and we are talking fairly extremist here in terms of them. You can say, you're simply castigating the right. Well, actually, there is the right, and then there is the extremer right.
Yeah.
And they have been particularly virulent and many scandalous in the myths that they perpetrate. Sarah Palin pushing the whole health death panel thing, saying that you'd go to the doctor and the doctor would have to discuss, was going to be forced by the government to talk about not resuscitating you and this, that, and the other thing. All of it, totally untrue. and baseless, and yet there it was, and that's what they thought. They thought that the government was going to come in, and they're convinced, it's all shaping up for this new world order that's going to come in, this one government, and the military is going to be used against the people, and it's just, this dreadful scaremongering.
Our government could use those kinds of tactics.
They could.
Perhaps with this mining business, they could say education and health or mining.
Well, they could say education and health needs to be paid for by the revenues.
That's right.
That mining attracts.
No education or health or mining.
No, at least we can take our water for granted, even if we are arguing about our mines.
World Water Day yesterday.
Apparently so. Who knew? Well, most of the world who had something to do with water, I expect. They say that dirty water kills more people than violence.
Is that right?
Isn't that amazing? And we take it for granted. We ran out of water the other day at my Riverhead establishment.
You almost became a victim.
Almost became the victim of it, because it's a bit dry out there, and using a bit of water to water the old gardens. Got a tanker of water in. I think it was something like 10,000 litres or something for like $170. I thought that was bloody good value.
That sounds quite cheap, isn't it? It's a few pump bottles.
That's exactly what I thought. I said, imagine if I tried to replenish my tank, one 500ml bottle at a time.
Yeah.
I'd still be there, lugging them in, and I'd be absolutely penniless. Yes.
So
I'm a big fan of the. A lot of people castigate the sale of bottled water. I'm a big fan of it.
No, really?
Yes.
Why justify it?
Well, look, admittedly, it's massively overpriced. Admittedly, you could probably fill your own bottle and take it yourself, but who does that? I mean, that's like having those reusable shopping bags.
It's all very well saying who does that. Why not do it?
And you want to go and have a drink. You don't want some kind of overly sugared beverage. You want something a little bit healthy, you can go and get a nice cold bottle of water.
What about the plastics that are to make these bottles?
It's got the plastic for the bottle, but it's got none of the... You look at a bottle of Coke or something like that.
Same thing.
All of the additives that have gone in that, all of the sugar, all of the transport for that, all of these things have done as some distributor like, Amatel, Coke Amatel or someone just turned on the tap in their thing and filled up a bottle of water and shipped it off to you.
Yeah, exactly. So aren't you feeling ripped off?
I do feel a little bit ripped off, but I tell you what, I'd rather buy a nice cool bottle of Adam's Ale, as my grandfather used to call water, than an overly sugared beverage.
Good on you.
Better for you.
Yeah.
Better for the planet, in a roundabout kind of way.
Yeah. What about this? Have you seen this car that caught fire?
Terrible. Look, ever restored a car?
No.
Motorcycle?
No.
Anything?
No.
Renovated a room?
Yes.
What if the room had burnt down just after you'd finished?
Oh, I would have been crying.
Absolutely crying. The great thing about this story, well, it's not a great thing about it, but this guy spent 10 years restoring a car, and I was thinking, oh, this is dreadful. And the Toyota Starlet hatchback. For 10 years?
Wow.
For a Toyota Starlet hatchback. Turns out he was going to use it in the Targa Rally, so obviously he was really pimping that up, and he'd taken it out for a drive. He drove a few metres up the road, noticed some smoke and flames, fire started coming out from under the bonnet, and then, not only is that bad enough, and then it set a forest on fire.
Oh, no.
Small pine plantation.
Oh.
Then it caused traffic chaos, and you just thought, wow, how bad is your day getting?
Yeah.
Very bad. Not as bad as the poor guy in Bangladesh.
Oh, what's happened to him?
Oh, look, these people at a brick-making site were being castigated for... I've used that word a couple of times today.
Castigated.
Being chastised for not producing red enough bricks. And so they went to a fortune teller and went, hey, why are bricks not red enough? They went, oh, what you'll be wanting is a human sacrifice.
No.
So they beheaded one of the bricklayers and burned his head in the kiln.
Oh.
Thinking that it would make their bricks redder.
Oh.
Terrible.
Did it work?
No.
Oh.
Don't think. Well, they never. The thing about that is they never really say whether it does.
Worth trying, though.
Worth trying.
Yeah.
Yes. So there you go. Don't do that. Don't
Or-
look at pornography.
Don't do that. Yeah.
This is my favourite. It's my favourite non-story of the week. If someone rings you up to conduct one of these surveys,
Yes.
and generally, I don't
At
know how
dinner
honest
time.
you are. You always try to make yourself seem a bit more, important and awesome than you would be normally.
Do you do the surveys?
Yeah, sometimes if I've got time, I find them interesting and intriguing, the kind of questions they want to know. But apparently...
I like the cat food ones. I do those.
Do you? Never had a cat food one? No. But the latest survey that comes out, so apparently fewer than 5% of Kiwis admit to using the internet for pornography daily.
Is that right?
So less than 5% of us
Well, are
every
you
day
going to
look at
admit?
pornography
Are
on
you
the
going to
internet.
admit such a thing to a stranger on the phone?
Exactly. And more than 80% said they had never looked for sexual content on the web. 80%, that's 8 out of 10 internet users, never looked for it.
So, so they're saying they've never been tempted by a link that says NSFW?
Never, they say. So there you go. Of course, the NetSafe person's come out and said, yeah, generally this kind of thing is massively underreported, because who's going to go out and say, yep, every day,
Yeah.
sometimes twice to 3 times a day, doing it now.
Yeah,
In fact,
like I was
if you'd
gonna say.
stop talking to me, I could get back to it. Not me.
Yeah.
That's what someone could be saying, obviously, too. Yeah.
Well, I'll leave you to it then, T-Radar.
We'll speak again next week.
See you, mate.
All right.